for joining us today. What a great roll-up we have here. Very, very good to see so many enthusiastic people in the room. I know you get to listen to me and our team here on a regular basis, so that you've taken the time out to come along and hear about a very specific topic we're very, very flattered and grateful for. The purpose of this workshop is to put clarity to a lot of the madness behind our methods. Everything in this studio has been done by design and deliberately, and it is the end result of my 42 years in the business, my extensive research, my extensive attending conferences, but also the great knowledge of the people that I've had the pleasure of rubbing shoulders with over those years. So we put a lot of time and thought into the product we ultimately drop in front of you and say, this is how we believe you can love your life. One of the most important elements to that is strength. It is being strong. So I decided to put a seminar on that would focus on that exact topic. There are many other benefits of coming to Paradise Fitness and to working out in general, but that's the purpose of today's workshop. It is a strength clinic, and we're going to break down what is strength, what does it mean to you, how do we achieve it, what are some of the myths around strength training, and also how do we make sure we'll get a little topic on foods as well so that we can actually get the outcomes we're looking for. Because like all things, if you don't feed yourself correctly, a lot of the hard work can be undone. I'm not a nutritionist, but I've had the honor of working with many great nutritionists for many, many years, so I'll share just a couple of key points at the end. I believe by the time you leave this room, you'll have a better understanding of what we do and why we do it. I believe you'll get more out of your workouts. I believe you'll get less risk of injury. And I believe you'll just feel more confident that the efforts you're putting in are going to be rewarded. So that's why we're here today. Okay? Feel free at any time to ask questions. And there are no stupid questions. I guarantee you. You might be sitting there thinking, oh, I want to ask, but they'll all think I'm silly. 5 other people in the room are wondering the same thing. So have the courage to stick your hand up or just interject. I promise you, it will absolutely help everybody. Is that a fair deal? Cool, great. All right, so we'll get underway. We've got Kyle here. Thanks, Kyle's coming today to video record this as well. We will make the recording of this available for everybody, but there's nothing like being on site at the time. So again, great to have you all here. So firstly, question for you. What does strength mean to you? When we said strength clinic, what little trigger inside your brain, what did you think you were going to get out of this? So literally from the room, tell me, what are some of the things you think strength means to you?
Muscle.
Muscle, very good, Mandy.
Self-confidence.
Oh, self-confidence.
Technique.
Technique. What was the next one?
Determination.
Determination. Oh, we've got some good answers here.
Improvement.
Improvement.
Longevity.
Oh.
Bone strength.
Longevity. I'm going to run out of room. We got bone strength. Excellent. There's some really good answers there. Let's quickly break those down. Obviously, strength is driven by muscle. We've got bone strength as well. So you've got the musculoskeletal system is how we move. You've got the skeleton inside of your body, just over 200 odd muscles, 220 bones, rather, 220 bones, and then over the top of that, just over 600 muscles. The muscle's job is to move the bones. The bones make you strong through that movement. The stronger the muscles are, the more you can move. Those muscles are connected to the bones by tendons. That's where the muscle becomes a little bit of rope and it latches onto the bone. And what holds the bones together? Ligaments. So then we can talk about biology all day, but at the end of the day, if you've got strong muscle, you'll move better. With that will come confidence to tackle things that others might be a little hesitant to try. Yes, we're going to talk a lot about technique today because to get those two things, you've got to do it right. Determination, you've got to show up. If you don't show up, nothing's going to happen. And we often say this to our clients, all you really need to do is come through that door. You do that, we'll take care of the rest. We will make sure we design a great workout for you. We will run it in a way we believe is the most effective. We will motivate and push you and hold you back when we need to. 90% of the results will simply come from walking through that door. And that takes a little bit of discipline and determination. What we don't run is a bus service. Okay? Thought about it. Jonesy's a bit busy at the moment. He drives a bus. thought about it, improvement obviously comes from these things. Improvement comes from doing it right, doing it often. Repetition is the mother of success. And benefits, of course, longevity. We're going to talk a lot about the longevity from strength training, and a big part of that is bone strength, very much so. Are there any women in the room? There's a few. You are far more susceptible to losing bone than we men. We'll talk about why later. It's not fair. You get a lousy deal on many levels. This is just one of them. So look, on my slide, I got a few of those. To me, strength is about performance. I do strength training because I play AFL football. I participate in a number of other sports. I love to do things like scuba diving. I can't scuba dive without strength. But also know that strength builds, as you said, muscle protection. We're going to talk a lot about muscle protection today. Strength training is how we keep the muscles we've got, let alone just gain more. Strength training is about bone protection. We know through all the research on bone density or loss of bone is very much linked to inactivity. And the more load we can do, the more impact work we can do. The bones are simply getting a message that says, we need you, stick around. Yep. And injury prevention is another big one. Whether it's performance and injuries prevention for sports or just life. You know somebody who's had a fall. And sadly, that fall was the beginning of the end. Yeah, we hear about it all the time. Injury prevention can be as simple as not rolling your ankle, or it could be something a lot more serious like not fracturing a hip, ending up in hospital, getting pneumonia and saying goodbye to your loved ones way too soon. Common scenarios. Maybe not in our 30s and 40s, but hopefully the longevity means the risk of that down the track will be lessened because of the habits and the decisions we made now. Stress relief is another big one. Life is in the living. Today, how do you feel? If you feel good, if you feel in control, it's probably because of some of the habits and choices that you've made on a daily basis. Exercise is number one for me. If I don't get my workouts regularly, coffee comes number two. If I don't get my workouts regularly, my mood is not anywhere near as good as it should be. I know that as a fact. And for some people, that's more the case than others. Resistance training, strength training is proven unequivocally to be a major reducer of stress, more powerful than any drug available to us. Balance. Again, going back to that whole injury prevention thing. Strength is important for balance. We're going to go through that in more detail today, which of course leads to the single most important asset you'll ever have, your independence. Health is your greatest asset because what it gives you is independence. Health gives you the freedom of not relying on others. Health gives you the choice to live life on your terms. And strength is one of the three big components. Cardiovascular fitness is another one. Flexibility is another one. But today we're focusing on strength. Cool. Also gives you the confidence, which was very quickly noted over here. The confidence to do things that others sadly have to apologise that they can't. So there's some of the things we'll achieve today. Let's talk about the muscle loss one first. Okay? Right now you're getting older. As we sit here and the time ticks by, well, you're getting older. Minutes go past, hours go past, years go past. Hopefully you'll all get to live long, full, productive lives. But here's a fact. There's something called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia. Careful how you Google that. Sarcopenia. One of the most striking effects of age is the involuntary loss of muscle strength and function. We lose 3 to 8% per decade once we turn 30. 3 to 8% of your muscle mass. Let's round that off to about 6%. So between the ages of 30 and 60, that's the 40th decade, the 50th decade, the 60th decade, in 3 decades, you could lose 1/5 of your muscle tissue. That's a lot when you think of the importance and the role that muscle tissue plays. By the way, these aren't my numbers. This comes from the National Institute of Health. I do a lot of research and quoting a lot of figures from the US because that's a very well-funded organisation for a very large population. They also happen to have probably the worst, unhealthiest population in the civilised world. Yep, it's not what you know, it's what you do. So, bone loss with ageing. At the exact same rate that we lose muscle tissue, we can also lose bone tissue, but more so if you're a female, and more so after menopause. Let's have a look here at some of the information. 20% of bone density loss within 5 to 7 years after menopause. So basically when your child rearing days are done, the body says, well, I guess we don't serve much purpose anymore. We can start to shut things down. It's a suck of a deal. It really is. Yep, your job's done, girls. Off you go. Or you can say, hell no. I'm going kicking and screaming. And the only thing you have to do to say to your body, no, we have other purposes. We have other plans. All you have to do to tell your bones and your muscles that is to use them. That's it. That's all you've got to do. You've just got to put them under load and say, no, don't go anywhere. I still need you to stick around. And by doing that challenge, that stimulation, the bones and the muscles get the message to say, oh, we better keep reproducing cells and not decline. We can not just slow this down, we can stop bone loss through resistance training. We can stop muscle loss through resistance training. But it has to be done often, it has to be done at the right intensity, and it has to be done right. Again, more references from this is from the National Institute of Aging at the National Institute of Health in the United States. The number one thing they've put up here to prevent falls, to prevent injury from bone loss is to exercise to improve strength and balance. That's their number one. Some others there, stand up slowly and use a cane or a walker. Oh, by the way, I collect walking sticks, right? Never needed them. Install night lights and grab bars in your bathroom. Be extra careful using stairs during inclement weather. Or you could just do number one and not need to worry about 2, 3, 4, or a whole bunch of others. Yep. Now, there's a whole bunch of other reasons. Balance is critical. Balance is critical. There's a function called proprioception. If I got you all to stand up right now and close your eyes and stand on one leg, someone in the room would feel like they're going to fall over. Others would be perfectly stable. What's determining that? An involuntary contraction at the muscles, particularly right here, right now, in my ankle. If I do that, you'll see there's some little wobbling going on, but there's automatic corrections happening. I'm not turning that on consciously. It's an involuntary action called proprioception. Proprioception is determining and recognizing a change in your status and then correcting it. It's like an autopilot. We lose that with age. You lose it with injury. So, you know, some footballers roll their ankle on the football field, like Ben did this year. If you don't go and strengthen that proprioception back, guess what happens? They do it again and again. Has anyone here in the room ever rolled an ankle and then it seems like every time you step on a blade of grass, you just go again? Yep. You look at an odd road and your ankle rolls. That's the loss of that involuntary contraction called proprioception. How do you keep it? How do you get it back? Strength training. That's also requiring coordination. You don't want to do exercises that are just very rigid and very linear. We'll talk a bit more about our exercise choices later, because coordination means being able to do things with a little chaos thrown in. And the third one, of course, is the confidence. A lot of people have falls just because they've had a couple, they lose their confidence, and so now they subconsciously talk themselves into failing. It's like that person who rides a bike and says, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree. Guarantee you they're going to hit the tree. Yep. They'll talk themselves into failing. So if you've got that confidence, that state of mind that says, I'm ready for anything. I trained for this. Nothing's going to stop me. If you've got that mindset, you don't fall, you don't fail. So what are you going to talk yourself into, winning or losing? A lot of that comes from the confidence from knowing you've done the work. 11 weeks to go, Jonesy, National Carnival. Yeah, do the work. So let's talk about a little bit about how we do that work here, and then we'll go into how to get it right, how to make it right every time. As you know, we have a whole range of different apparatus in this club. We'll go through them very, very quickly just to refresh your memory on why we chose those and how we incorporate them in our strength training. And then I'll break that down into some golden rules to get the most out of it. So, of course, the first one is right here, this rack of dumbbells. What do I love about dumbbells? I love about the fact that they are so versatile. You know, if I said, what exercise will you do with this? Everyone in the room could give me a different answer. Give me one, Ellie. One exercise I could do with that. Bicep curl. Thank you very much. Give me another one, please, Mel.
Squats.
A squat. I could use it as a body weight exercise with my squats. Yes, next one, please, Paula.
Skull crusher.
Oh, skull crusher, the overhead tricep extension. Paul, give me another one.
Paperweight.
Paperweight. Fantastic. I thought if I go to a guy, I'll get a great answer. Victor.
Lunges.
Lunges, very good. I could use it for my lunge. Give me one more, please, Fiona. Shoulder press. See, we're running. We could run out of time before we run out of ways we could use that. Very versatile. Okay, and of course, the other versatility is we can fit a fair amount of dumbbells in a relatively small space. You know, I've got racks going here from 1 kg all the way up to 25 kg. They do make heavier dumbbells, but we don't aim for the market that needs those heavier dumbbells. That's probably the best way of putting it. Yep, very good. Intensity. By using the dumbbells right, I can absolutely pinpoint my intensity. If it's just a little bit too heavy, I can go slightly lighter and vice versa. What else is great about them? Well, the variety. The variety of exercises means that I don't get bored. If someone says, oh, grab a pair of dumbbells, they're going, oh, God, dumbbells again. No, because you don't know what we're about to do. It could be lateral flies, it could be upright rows, it could be alternate presses, it could be all sorts of things. It could be on a bench, it could be standing up, it could be laying down, it could be reverse, facing prone, supine, whatever. A lot of variety. And of course, with that comes the challenge, the benefit of being able to say to yourself, every time I'm asked to do something with a dumbbell, I know I can actually challenge myself. And I can challenge myself to the level that is right for me. We have people coming into Paradise Fitness who are absolute beginners. They can do a dumbbell exercise right next to someone who's super strong and advanced because of the variety of range options. That means we can focus. We can target the tricep. We can target the pectorals. We can target the quads. We're able to be very specific. Right, kettlebells. Kettlebells, everyone thinks they're the new hot thing on the market. 1903 was when Sandow first threw them around. All right, everything old is new again. I love kettlebells. We actually took a while to buy some for the club. We kind of wanted to introduce things in gradually so that we could keep having surprises for you. But yeah, look, they're fun. There's a lot of things we can do with a kettlebell. What I like about our kettlebells is they're very heavy for their size. The heaviest one we have there is a 40 kg kettlebell. Now, a 40 kg dumbbell would take up a lot of space, and being a dumbbell, it actually has some limitations. With the kettlebell, nice comfortable grip, things like our sumo squats, for example, I would only want to do it with a kettlebell at that weight. Very good. So there's some variety options there. Therefore, when we do kettlebell work, it usually is associated with a little bit more intensity. Not always, but certainly when we go to our higher intensity, like a back row, it's going to be a big, heavy kettlebell. Right, what else? They are very comfortable. The grips can be very comfortable. They can also be bloody uncomfortable for the wrong exercise. Like, I don't like them for an overhead press because they press right into your forearm, whereas a dumbbell stays out of the way. Some people love to do a kettlebell press, but by and large, our market, not so much. So there's a comfort consideration, and again, great way to challenge ourselves because of the instant variety. Too heavy, too light, just right. What else do we have? We have bands. I think this is an area that we've been very specialised in and unique in. And the outside world might look at our band photographs and laugh and go, oh, these are rubber bands. They don't do a real workout there. Yeah, come and try it. Come and find out how versatile these bands are. Come and see that we can use speed training with our rubber bands you can't use with kettlebells and dumbbells. Come and find out the variety. See how we're able to do multifunctional, multi-directional exercises. With our bespoke, soon-to-be patented spines and jungle workout, we're able to work from below, medium, high, crisscross, all kinds of angles because of the simple use of a rubber band. You can't do that with a dumbbell. Dumbbell has two ways of working, up and down. It doesn't work in circles. It doesn't work in rotations. Dumbbells work with vertical gravity. Kettlebells work with vertical gravity. Rubber bands, we can work them 360 degrees. And that gives us a lot of power in our workouts. And of course, you can make it as hard as you want. We've got a whole range of rubber bands going from 10 pound all the way up to 90. And then of course you can put more than one band on. You can double loop them as we do. So we've become very innovative about how we use our rubber bands to get a strength resistance workout. We're very proud of that and we'll continue to be as innovative as we can. What else? Actually, I want to go back to the speed thing. I used a method there before about inertia. Let me just remind you what I meant by that. Now, someone mentioned before shoulder press. We're going to talk a little bit later about speed and so forth. A very simple rule I want you all to remember is the rule of inertia. When is it appropriate to use speed or when is it not? The short answer is we don't use speed with kettlebells, barbells, or dumbbells. Why? Because of the force of inertia. Have you done inertia at school yet? Okay. Inertia is when a force continues to move under its own force by momentum. So when I do this nice and slow, my shoulder muscles, my triceps are in control. But if I pick up the speed, what happens? It continues to move under its own force because of the momentum. Because gravity cannot slow it down because the energy behind it is actually allowing it. So the short answer is this. If I'm going to use a dumbbell for shoulders, I have to go slow and controlled. And we'll talk later about speed, but let's call it a 2 up, 2 down is a pretty typical rule. 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. But if I go fast, I might think, oh, great speed work, great speed work. Guarantee you that half of that movement, there was no load on my shoulder anymore because of inertia. Try that with a rubber band. Inertia does not exist with a rubber band. So, here I am with a rubber band. I can go slow. I can go fast. It never, ever, ever has an inertia problem. Does that make sense? So, if I want to do speed training and make it hard, I get as much band as I can cope with and I go as fast as I can. And I will get stronger and faster without suffering that problem. So that's one of the big advantages of our rubber bands over our dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells. And it's amazing how many other fitness programs that I've been involved with around the world that don't get that. All right. So that's enough on bands. Let's quickly talk about suspension training. We use our TRX. We've got one hanging over there. It's a suspension system. I was first introduced to suspension training by a guy by the name of Lou Barry 34 years ago. God rest your soul, Lou. Lou was a great trainer, a very innovative trainer. Sadly, a steroid-taking bodybuilder also. And steroids killed him at the age of 43. I always like to acknowledge Lou's presence in our world because he was such a great innovator. I learned a lot from him. I actually had the pleasure of working with his team and consulting in some other areas, but when I was there, I learned a lot from him. And suspension training came along through him way before these brands of TRX and the like. But the TRX system have done a great job of making it more popular and common. We love our suspension systems. We love all the variety and the intensity that we get from it. And also we're able to incorporate balanced movements. Because another advantage of dumbbells, barbells, rubber bands is you've got to control that proprioception we spoke about earlier. You've got to control the direction. And suspension training is the same thing. You've got to control the direction. So we love suspension training. We can then make it even more crazy by adding in the BOSU. BOSU is an example of an imbalanced training system. So again, we spoke before about balance. I talked about standing on one leg. Try doing that on a BOSU. It's a lot harder. Yep. So when we introduce that, there it is right there. When we introduce that chaos of the imbalance. So now I've got to really work to do that. Try doing that with weights, it gets even harder, right? So by having an unstable foundation, all that proprioceptive work has to fire even more aggressively. So when you're standing on solid ground, it's so much easier. You're never going to fall from here if you can stand up here. You get the idea? Great. So there's some of the things we incorporate in our training. And of course, we have body weight exercises as demonstrated here by our club champion, Paul Copson, doing a marvellous chin up there. Now, we can do speed training in this type of exercise. We can do speed training in this type of exercise because with your full body weight, it's harder to get inertia. So you think you're going really fast, but you're not. It is great because they have our ability to do multi-directional body weight exercises. So you can do push-ups on the floor in a vertical or an inclined or declined position. You can do it on the floor, and a sit-up is a body weight exercise. So anything that incorporates your body weight that doesn't require you to hold anything, we're able to get a little bit more momentum, a little bit more speed going because they don't quite get the same inertia effects, but it's simple to do. So we do love that. So that's our range that we've chosen here. Everything in here was brought in here for a reason. And all above that, it's space efficient. We've got 90 square meters of workout space here. This used to be my office. Where you're sitting right now, Mel, I used to have a big desk with about 4 computer screens. Then there was a wall right where that light line is. There was another 2 offices here where we had our IT team working. Over here, my bookkeeper worked out of a small corner here. You always hide the bookkeeper in the corner. Never let him talk to anybody. All right? Never let him talk to humans. That used to be a boardroom with a board table that was made out of solid granite stone that weighed 600 kilos. Took a lot of us to get it out of the building. This used to be our office. So when we went to build a club, what couldn't we do? There's no way we were going to have big bulky machines. A, we didn't want to cater for this kind of market. There's a place for them. All right, I've run gyms, I've owned gyms where we had these wonderful people train there. But that's not what this club was about. That's not who we cater for. It'd be like saying I'm opening up a restaurant, but I'm choosing to do seafood. You come in looking for a steak, I'm sorry, I'm not saying you're bad for wanting to eat steak, we just don't do it here. Or maybe I'm a vegetarian restaurant, we don't do either of those options. We just decided who we wanted to be catering for in a relatively small space. So we don't do big bulky machines. We don't do machines that take a lot of space. That's one machine that takes this amount of space, you can do one exercise on it. So any wonder they build really big gyms. They have to, because they've got 67 machines to do what that wall does. Yeah? And that's not exact. Actually, those 67 machines still wouldn't do what that wall does. So we were, I think, pretty smart about our strength choices. What else don't we do? We don't do stupid crap like burpees. We don't do burpees. Is burpee a strength exercise? Yeah, somewhat. Is it efficient to get fit? Yeah, somewhat. And if you do it the way this photograph shows, it's reasonably safe. But what do we see every other nutcase doing when they do their burpees? They drop to the floor. They have 2/3 of their body weight on their smallest joints, their wrists. Yep. They hyperextend their lower back under speed. Then they swing back up and do it all again. And then they've got some coach yelling over the top of them to go harder and faster. Now, am I saying that the rest of the world are crazy for doing burpees? Yes! But that's just my opinion after 42 years of working with athletes all over the world and seeing lots of people complain about broken scaphoids. But apart from that, knock yourself out. Just not here. So we're deliberate in our choices. So let's go back to the strength side of things. What are the golden rules, how to make the most out of your strength training here? Before I go any further, are there any questions? No, we're okay so far? Cool. All right. Rule number 1, technique is key. No matter what you do, technique will always matter. And I hope we've given you that feeling in our coaching. I hope when William, I hope when Angus, I hope when Van and our new guys, Darren and Rachel and Angel, I hope when we work with you on the floor, you get a sense that to us technique really matters. I don't think we overdo it. I don't think we're too pedantic. I think we bring enough technique advice to make it safe and effective without making you feel like you can't get it. Because what you don't want is someone being so pedantic that 0.5% you couldn't quite get, you now feel like you're a loser, right? We want you to win every time. But we will teach you what is safe, what works. Yep. Rule number 1, focus and posture. Yeah, we're always talking about posture. Probably a great example of getting that right and getting it wrong is a bent over row. Okay, bent over row. Grab myself a pair of dumbbells. A bent over row done wrong looks like this. A bent over row done right looks like that. The difference was I've got control and focus on my lower back. I've got my pelvis controlled. I've got my back nice and flat. Both of them have my shoulder blades squeezing up, no question. But this one is going to hurt my lower back over time. This one, I'm going to get strong right through. Pardon my butt. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Yeah, you got a good look now? There you go. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Share the love. So focus, posture. What else? Range of movement. Range of movement. A lot of people don't understand the muscle gets strong where the muscle gets worked. Muscle gets strong where the muscle gets worked. I remember the early days when I was first training, and the guys I trained with, one I'm going back literally 42 years to the Redcliffe Police Youth Club. I was 16 years of age, and they loved doing this thing called sevens. Sevens was you'd grab some dumbbells, you do 7 halfway, then you do the 7 top, then you do the 7 full. Yep. Okay, which of those 7 actually work the muscles properly? The reality is the last one. Now, because we did the half here and the half here, we still covered the whole muscle, so it wasn't horrible, it wasn't terrible. But the reality was, all those 7s we did was high repetition training when we could have just slowed down. If we wanted to get big and bulky and have beach biceps, all we needed to do was a full range of movement. Anything creative out of that just takes up time. Anything creative out of that. You'll never see us doing half range of movement work. Though last night we did do some box squats where we went partially all the way down. We did that deliberately to really burn the thighs out the top, but we also made sure there was full range movement in the workout. So let me go one more time. If I do that all my life and never go any higher, I'll only ever really get strong up to there. And when I try to finally do something here, high risk of an injury, or I just won't have the same performance. Range of movement matters. That's why we're always saying range of movement. Triceps, we often see people, oh, tricep. No. Tricep is full range of movement. Full extension, full contraction. So whenever you're training, we're going to encourage you to focus your posture and take the muscle through its longest range of movement possible. Another good example is the hanging knee tuck. If you're hanging and you just bring your knees to here, the abdominals do not contract at all. It's an isometric tightness. Isometric means no movement. It's an isometric tightness, and it's a isokinetic movement of my hip flexors. It's only when I tilt my pelvis and lift my knees up, the abdominals actually change length, contract. Little things like that we're watching out for and trying to encourage you. Remember, range of movement really matters. Tempo. Our classic tempo is 2-2. 2 up, 2 down. I could show you some pretty compelling research on why going slower gets better strength gains. And if we were just a strength club, we'd probably go slower. But we're not. Every one of our workouts gets you stronger, fitter, faster, leaner, and improved cardio endurance. Slow strength training won't give you that. Slow strength training will give you strength and muscle bulk. So we believe that the 2 up, 2 down repetition speed is about spot on. 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. Make sense? Sometimes we'll go 3-3, sometimes we'll go 2-4, where we go, okay, I want you to push up and then come down real slow. Push up, come down real slow. We'll do that occasionally. I do it with my PT a lot. But by and large, for you guys, that's the rule. 2 seconds away, 2 seconds back. Failure is a friend. And this is one of the most important messages I wanted to share with you guys today. I don't think this has been expressed well enough. There's a real pushback against the whole go hard, go home thing. You know, it's like, oh, that's just a ridiculous analogy. The truth is, it is true. If you don't take your muscle to a point of stimulation where there's some momentary fatigue, it has no need to change, because all you've done is get it to do what it can do without challenge. Does that make sense? The only reason your body will evolve is if it's put in a situation it is not already comfortable in. Let me repeat that. The only reason your body will evolve if it's put in a situation it's not already comfortable with. So if I stand here on 2 feet all day talking to you guys, and I'm used to that, then today will do nothing for me, right? But if you've been sitting in an office chair for 6 months working away in front of a computer, and suddenly the boss says you've got to do a presentation to all the staff for a day tomorrow, I guarantee you your legs will fail and you'll have pain in your shins. It'll be quite traumatic. Well, let's bring that back into the gym environment. If I say do a bent over row with a kettlebell, and you do this and you've got 45 seconds to do it, and you go 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, with great technique. If this kettlebell doesn't make your muscles a little fatigued towards the end, I'm not saying you wasted your time, but you missed an opportunity. Yep, I'm not saying you wasted your time, but you missed an opportunity. The opportunity there was to find a weight that made your muscles not fail to the point of collapse, but failure simply means they can no longer perform that movement in comfort. When there's discomfort, there's discovery. Discovering new reasons to stay strong, discovering new reasons to maintain range of movement, discovering new reasons for those cells to reproduce tomorrow and come back better and brighter, like a renovated home versus a wreck. Yep. Discomfort creates discovery. Cool. So failure is your friend. Momentary, only momentary muscular fatigue. Very good. And negatives and strategic cheating are something that is commonly used to get beyond that. So when I do my PT, I might say to my client, right, we're going to grab something decent. Let's say we're doing bicep curls with 15s, for a pair of 15s. And I might say, okay, your job is to do this movement. And our goal is to try to get at least 8 repetitions. And we get to 7 and he's just starting to fail. I might let him swing them up a little, but now he has to control them down. Swing them up a little. This is cheating to get them up, but using a negative contraction to get them down. Why? Because the negative, like I said with Luke's clubs, the lowering is where you get the most strength gains. So if you run out of lifting, but you can still cope with lowering, you're still going to get strength gains. So this is strategic cheating. Make sense? So if you've got that 45-second clock going, and it's 38 seconds, and you go, oh, I went a bit heavy. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Have a strategic cheat, lower down, and get stronger. Okay? Little strategy there. And you're saying, but Paul, you told me technique is king. I am. That's a technique. It's a controlled, I am just using a little bit of momentum to just get that last couple out. Great. The perfect rep range. Rep is short for repetition. Repetition, so when I did that bicep curl and I got to 8, that was 8 repetitions or one set of 8 reps. Technique is king. So we want to see good technique. Subject to your fitness levels, because some people in the room may not have the health to push themselves to the level of intensity of that momentary muscular fatigue, but subject to your intensity levels, do as many reps as you can to that point of momentary muscular failure. That's your goal. Now, if you can't do it 8 times, it's too heavy. When I did my little demonstration then, I walked straight past the 20 kg dumbbells for a good reason, because it would have been embarrassing. I wouldn't have been able to do 8 repetitions on 20s. I know that. I can do 7.5s, but I can't do 8 on 20s. That's too big an ask for me, not for my little body. So if you can't do 8, it's too heavy. If you're in this class or you're doing a workout with us and you pick a weight up and you know I'm not going to make it to 8 repetitions, immediately swap and drop. Immediately. But if you can pull off 16, now, we're talking about strength training here. We're going to talk about other strategies later. But if your goal is muscle strength, if your goal is muscle development, if your goal is bone protection, if you can do 16 or something, I wholeheartedly encourage you to try a little heavier. So let's say, for example, I am doing the rubber band overhead tricep extension, and it's a double whammy class. And my first set, I knocked out 45 seconds with a band. I'm allowed to go a bit quicker. And I knocked out 18 repetitions. And my arms did not die. Quickly swap the band. Make the next set harder and see if you can burn those triceps out before your 16th repetition. Probably means you're going to slow down, but that is going to give you more strength. Okay? So, every time we train, we try to beat what we did last time. That's how we get better. Every time we train, we try to beat what we did last time. Now, in our classes, we don't write down how many reps we did. We don't write down what weights we did. We don't have an app where you track it all. You just show up, you come through the door, we turn the timer on, we get the music going, and we make it as powerful a workout as we can. So let's not get too pedantic, but just remember this. When Kelly first joined this club, she was walking on that treadmill. Now she's running. There's a reason that you're now running, because you chose to do better than the last time. I've got some members here. Angus is a very good example. We've made Angus he's our new intern, learning to be a fitness coach. He's going through the group exercise leadership training course with the National College of Fitness. He's being mentored by myself, William and Ben. and he's going to be a fantastic fitness coach in the future. When he first joined this club, his weights were nowhere near what they are now, true? Because he always tries to improve. And there are many people in this room who have seen the same results because you do push yourself. So the rule number 1 is do it right. Rule number 2, do as many as you can. Rule number 3, if you can't do 8, it's too heavy. Rule number 4, if you can do 16, guess what? Don't be afraid to try a little bit harder. And next time, see if you can beat that, even by 1 repetition. That's real progression. And by the way, there are some other factors that will affect your strength, muscle tone, and muscle bulk. Firstly, let's talk about tone and bulk. Hands up if you generally want to get bigger, more muscular. Okay? Yep. Okay? My hand's up too. I'm playing in a national football carnival with my good mate Jonesy over here in 10.5 weeks' time. I want to be 1.5 kilos heavier, so any bloke who dares try to tackle me will have the 6 months ahead to regret it. They will bounce off. That's my goal.
Let's just get you there.
Yeah. I also don't want to get carried off the field this time. Yes, 2 good goals. So I do want to get bigger and bulkier right now, but not dramatically so, not like that guy in that photo we saw earlier. Now, some of you are doing our challenge right now, and we've done an in-body test, and in that in-body test, we've looked very closely at your muscle mass. And I think some of you will be very excited to see you put on 1.3, 1.7 kilos of muscle mass over the 8-week period. Doesn't mean you're going to become big and bulky. Because muscle, in females particularly, the first change is the fibres that were loose tighten up, pull together. I'll do that again. Think of these fibres as ropes. All the way down your arm, you've got ropes. And when they're out of tone, they kind of separate, take up more space. They become ineffective. They become uncoordinated. They become disjointed. And then you start to make them work and they pull together like a team. Yep, like the Queensland Masters. Pull together like a team. They take up less room. So a heavier muscle on a female can often appear on a smaller figure. Does that make sense? They tighten and firm. Now, what if we add testosterone? What does that do? Testosterone is one of a number of chemicals in the body that can actually make those muscle fibers start to thicken. Who has the most testosterone, males or females? Males, as a rule, males. About 10% of females are very high in testosterone. You'll see them competing at the Olympics. I would have said Commonwealth Games, but apparently that's on hold right now. But you'll see those 10% of our females who were naturally gifted with testosterone using that natural athleticism to their advantage. Some of them will look more muscular. Some of them will have the square jaws. Good for them. They're taking their gifts and turning it into an athletic ability. There are other women, however, who don't have that testosterone. And no matter how heavy, how hard, how you work, you're never going to be, as strong as, or particularly as bulky. You can, however, be very strong. My wife is a great example. If you've ever seen Jackie in here training, she's actually a very fine body. You can see her muscles, however, very strong. I've never seen a woman outlift her, certainly not anywhere near her body weight. So she's a great example of you can be strong without being bulky. And I really believe the type of training we're offering here and the kind of members we've attracted fit perfectly into the muscle tone and strength. Athletic, yes. Bulky, no. Okay? And if you want bulk, and I've got a couple of clients who do, we actually do PT with them. We take them into a much slower environment where we're doing multiple sets, hitting the muscles again and again and again, and we're getting gradual gains. That's what it takes. Okay? So testosterone is a big one. The intensity that you train is another big one, and allowing recovery. Here in this club, we see members coming 4, 5, sometimes 6 times a week. If my goal was to massively build muscle on you, I'd want more recovery days. I wouldn't want you back day after day working your muscles in a similar way. But for fitness, stamina, endurance, tone, lean, and all that stuff, absolutely. So there's a different recipe, a different formula, depending on the goals and the outcomes. We believe the way we train you here, we get the optimal balance of strength and fitness and fat management and overall health. Right. So what's the science of sequence and sets and speed in our workouts? We've already talked a bit about repetition speed, but if you really want to develop strength, we tend to work the bigger, muscle groups first. And you might notice we start our week out with our Rio class working the bigger muscle groups first. Second thing you want to do, agonist and antagonist. You should always make sure there's a balance between the push and the pull. If we're doing biceps, we will do triceps. Yep. If we're doing a pull down, we will most likely do a push up. We always make sure we pair movements up for balance. And if you don't know what I mean, I'll take you back to Redcliffe Police Youth Club in 1979, where two brothers looked amazing front on, but from behind, no calves, no back, poor posture, because they trained for the mirror. They trained for the abs, the pecs, the biceps. They trained for the mirror. They look great coming, they look crap going. Agonist and antagonist, get the balance. Now, single set versus multi-set. If you come to an ambush class, it's a single set class. Ambush is a cardio workout. Yes, you're doing some strength exercises, but you're only on it for 60 seconds. 60 seconds means high repetitions, lighter weights. Goal, heart rate, MEPs, fat burning, with some toning and strengthening. But if you come to a double whammy class, different, isn't it? Kind of slow things down. Do the muscle once, hit it again. It's like those old ads of the razors, you know, boys, where you got the first blade come through and then the second one finished it off. That's what the double whammy is. You hit it once, little recovery, they're fatigued, come back, whack them again, get that real momentary muscular fatigue, then move on to a totally different body part and do the whole process again. So we do our multi-set workouts where we're aiming for strength as a focus, as a priority. It's the top of the pile. Fitness comes underneath it. It's still in there, but it comes under. We do single set work when we want to get more cardio, or we get you back on here quickly, then out to strength and back on here. What's that sound like? What class? Trifecta, exactly right. Trifecta is the best of both worlds. You get the double whammy strength work, but we send you back for a quick hit of cardio to keep that heart rate up. A lot of science behind these workouts. Right, supersets. Supersets is where you can hit the same muscle twice. Last night here we did a bent over row with a back row combination. Then we went on to here and we did a butt raise with the dumbbell, working the lower back again and glutes. That's a superset. It's where we're hitting the same muscle more than once in a row. So you'll see that strategy employed. Classic bodybuilding do supersets. You know, maybe lateral flies followed by an overhead press. So it's where you hit the same muscle in a different way so you really, really, really exhaust it. So again, we throw that technique here in the club every now and then. Another technique is regular tempo versus super slow. We've already touched on that. We haven't done a lot of this up until now because I wanted to get you guys acclimated with our global approach, but we will, over time, introduce some more specialist challenges for you. And one of them, I think, what's the best example actually of a super slow set? The best example. Who can think? Who can be creative and think, hang on, what's the slowest repetition we do in this club?
Me doing abs.
Yeah, him doing any abs, okay. Well said, Victor. A plank. A plank. It's a 45-second repetition. It's an isometric contraction. Isometric means there's no movement. Isokinetic is contraction with movement. Isometric is contraction with no movement. A plank is a classic example. So a super slow set is basically where you really slow down what you're doing, really slow it down. And we do these occasionally, but you'll see more of it in the not too distant future. Cool. And by the way, there's more references there from the National National Institute of Health in the United States. Cool. Let's talk quickly about why we're doing this for the long term. Basal metabolic rate. Who's familiar with the term? Basal metabolic rate. Basal metabolic rate is a measurement of how much fuel you need to survive. Sitting here right now, your heart rates are relatively low. If you're wearing your MyZone belts, you'd all be in the grey. You'd all be in the grey. Except for Victor, who was thinking about doing sit-ups. He went to the blue. All right? Your base metabolic rate is measured as a total amount of calories required to keep you alive. It'd be a bit like saying your car's parked outside and the engine's running in neutral or in park. What's the fuel being required to keep that engine running? That's what your base metabolic rate is. Now, if we could increase that Think about that. If I got out to the car and I put a brick on the accelerator, what's that going to do to my fuel consumption? It's going to increase it dramatically. The engine's going to sound like it's revving, yes, but it is actually really turning over a lot more fuel. That is an optimal state to be in. An optimal state to be in is actually where your engine is running faster so that you don't store unnecessary calories. And when you get to a steady state where your calorie balance is right, when you have a high metabolic rate, you just get away with what?
Eating everything.
Eating more. Exactly right. You can even have a chicken kebab right before you give a presentation and you don't care. That's how good it is. When you've got a high metabolic rate, life is so less stressful and guilty. Guilt-free. Yep, I don't know, I might go to a Christmas in July party tonight and say, what the heck, I trained this morning. Yep, when you've got a high base metabolic rate, life is easier. Now, the BMA therefore refers to the amount of energy you need to maintain homeostasis, which is life. Your BMR is largely determined by your total lean body mass, how much muscle is on your body. That is the number one thing that will determine your rev rate. The more lean muscle, the better condition it is, the higher the caloric consumption per minute per day to stay alive. And that's from a Victorian Health website. I just thought I'll mix up some local information, but it's endorsed all over the world, this information. Factors that affect your BMR, number one, body size. The bigger you are, the higher amount of calories you'll need. Makes sense, right? So if you've got an 80 kilogram person and a 60 kilogram person, just by default, the 80 kilogram person's going to need more fuel to stay alive. However, lean muscle tissue is what really burns the energy. Body fat doesn't burn fuel. Body fat does no... So the 80 kilo person is only heavy because of their 20 kilos of extra fat. Metabolism will hardly change. The 80 kilo person might have a slightly high metabolism because those muscles have been carrying around 20 kilos of fat. That's a workout right there. Yep. So there are some factors. The amount of physical activity you do. Hard-working muscles need plenty of energy to burn. Regular exercise increases lean mass and increases basic metabolic rate. If you stop exercising, the reverse is true. You can't say, I've trained for 3 years, now I'm going to have a year off. Very quickly, your base metabolic rate will return to a state of normality. Do we need to pause for a second, or are you good?
No,
Oh, you did? Well done. The amount of body fat cells on your body, as I said, fat cells are sluggish, burn far fewer calories. The only reason there's a calorie consumption is, it's like if I picked up these two dumbbells here, there's 6 kilos of body fat I'm now carrying around. Naturally, I'm going to burn a bit more fuel. Make sense? Yep. Put them down, my fuel consumption will go back slightly. That's the only way fat is going to really make you burn fuel. Now, if there was a scientist in the room, they would say, Paul, that's not entirely true. Fat cells still need to be maintained life. They have to have water and other nutrients get to them to maintain their life. I would agree on that, but it's such a small amount, it simply isn't worth putting fat on to burn fat. Okay, you get the idea? Great. Other factors, crash dieting is the enemy of your BMI. BMR, basic metabolic rate. Crash dieting, your body says, no food available, we better start conserving what we've got. Come on, in COVID, during COVID when we weren't allowed to leave our houses and we couldn't get to the supermarket as often, weren't we a little more discerning about our use of foods and drinks and so forth? You know, we all had to conserve because we couldn't readily get access to resources. Well, that's how the human body is. If I stop eating, I'm telling my body, hey, guess what? You know that plentiful supply of calories? It's not there anymore. And the body goes, well, in that case, we better slow things down, or at this rate, we're going to burn ourselves to death. So it literally starts to wind back functions, slow them down. It's why we feel tired. It's why we feel lethargic. You have something to eat and it kind of peps you up. It's not that you've got energy from the food, it's your energy system was allowed to turn on again because it's no longer afraid of starving you to death. Now, you'll see on the internet thousands of people talking about how intermittent fasting and, you know, all these... 42 years, I've seen it all. I wish I could replay a current affair over the last 42 years of how many diets, how many wonder drugs, how many solutions they've had. I wish I could show you the front covers of Slimming magazine with all the new breakthroughs that they've had over 42 years. If one of them was any good, why don't they just repeat it the following freaking month? No, because that doesn't sell. It doesn't sell. What sells is new. The human body's had a long time to evolve and work out that if the cave has a dinosaur sitting outside and we can't get access to food, we have two choices: hibernate or dig a hole. And that's what hibernation is. It's the slowing down of your BMR so you can sustain a lack of food for a period of time. Bottom line, eat. What more factors? There's a whole bunch. Age, the older we get, and that's why is age a big factor? Because we lose muscle tissue. Yep, and the body says, oh, you're getting old, you probably don't want to be as active, do you? So we'll just start to make you feel more tired and sluggish. I know some very sprightly 80-year-olds and I know some very sluggish 40-year-olds. Lifestyle choices will always override this, but age is a factor. Growth. Infants and children, because they are growing, they do have naturally a higher caloric requirement. Gender. Generally, men have faster metabolisms. Okay? It makes sense. The superior race really does... Oh, you're still here? Good. Okay. Whoa! Who turned the lights out? Genetic predisposition. You have different body types. Mesomorphs are naturally more muscular. Ectomorphs are naturally leaner. Endomorphs are naturally heavier. If you're in a village 2,000 years ago, the mesomorphs would be the ones who went out and did the hunting. The ectomorphs would be the ones who run out looking for where the animals are. And the endomorphs would stay back and protect the young, right? And help prepare the food when it was all done. Everyone had a role to play. And no one was superior. They just, it's like on a football team. You've got your forwards who can kick a goal. You've got your back people who can tackle. You've got your mids who can run. It's like the women's FIFA World Cup team right now. We have some girls who can run really fast down the line. Others who just stand in the goal square and protect. Everyone has a place to be. None is superior over the other. We have a genetic disposition, however, that will tell us that our basic metabolic rate is going to be faster or slower depending on what that role is. Don't fight it. Embrace it. Make the most of it. Hormones, nervous controls, environmental temperature. Excessive heat and excessive cold will change your metabolic rate. There's a few other factors. If you've got an infection or an illness, drugs like caffeine and nicotine, I've ticked off about 9 of those, dietary deficiencies, all those things can affect it. Now, I've already run over time, but I'm going to keep going. Is that okay? Because I've got a few more very important points to share. Real quickly, I'm going to touch on this one. To get stronger requires oxygen. The term aerobic means in the presence of oxygen. Aerobic activity by definition is we breathe in air and it helps us convert fuel to move. Now, the word cardio is actually a slang term. When we say we're doing an ambush is more about cardio, it's slang. It's really aerobic. But you know why we stopped using the word aerobic? Woo! Because guys like me back in the 80s were doing aerobic classes, and so we said, oh, well, we don't do aerobic classes anymore, so we won't call it aerobics, because that sounds like he's doing a grapevine with an easy walk and a... No. So what we'll do, we'll just name it after... We'll name it after the organ we're working. Okay? We'll name it after the organ we're working. All right, so it literally refers to the heart muscle. Any aerobic activity refers to the heart muscle. So cardiovascular fitness, there's 2 types, heart and blood vessels, which is the heart and the arteries, and then there's the heart, blood vessels, and lungs. Cardiorespiratory fitness, very different outcomes. And you can train one or the other. But generally, we're about this one, heart, lungs, blood vessels. Now, here's how it works, real quickly. Your fuel is stored as something called adenosine triphosphate, 3 phosphates with adenosine in your body. They hold the fuel. So just think of it like a little package of 4 items together, adenosine and 3 mates. To get energy out of that, we need oxygen. We throw oxygen in and it actually splits that and creates energy. Boring, I know. Guess what actually comes out of those 3? Something called carbon. What happens when you put oxygen and carbon together? You get carbon dioxide. Okay, guys, here's how it is. You breathe air in, you break your fuel up, it makes you move, you breathe out the waste, which is one of those phosphates and the oxygen that you breathed in. Now, why am I telling you this? The oxygen's essential for that to work. The oxygen, if it's depleted, you won't train as well. When we built this club, we had a brand new air conditioning system put in. And there's a little tiny vent just outside that window. That's a fresh air vent. That takes in 30% of the air that changes over in this room every hour. That sucks in fresh air, goes through an ultraviolet treatment to kill any germs, and then cools it to put air in the room. We spend a lot of money to do that. Now, not too far from here, somebody's built a gym where they suck the oxygen out and pump the room with carbon dioxide, nitrogen. And they tell you that that's altitude training and it's going to make you fitter. The biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard in my life. It's the exact opposite of this. You will feel exhausted, no question about it. I lived at altitude for 2 years in Utah. I trained with athletes at altitude for 2 years in Utah. I studied altitude training for 2 years in Utah. And I learned that to change your body's ability to convert fuel, you've got to be there for 14 months. And for 14 to 18 hours a day at that altitude level. To go into that environment for 1 hour, 3 times a week, and change your body's ability for its hemoglobin to store and use oxygen is an absolute furphy. So if anyone tells you, oh, come and try this area, here's what you say to them. Do you remember COVID? Remember they made us wear masks? Remember how we had to rebreathe our air full of carbon dioxide? That's what you're doing. Now, when they introduced COVID mask rules, they said in gyms you don't have to wear a mask when you're doing cardio or intense exercise. Why? Because it totally is contradictory to what you're there to achieve. So if you're invited to an environment where someone wants to put a mask over you for an hour and make you work out, question whether they really know the science. Question whether they really know the science. Oxygen depletion diminishes performance. You cannot get the same outcomes. So that's why we always make sure we've either got windows open or the air conditioning on. We don't just turn on fans. We make sure we're rotating our air, getting rid of your carbon dioxide and replacing it with good old O2. We also use interval training. 40 to 60 seconds means 8 to 14 repetitions. So this is where it all comes together. Why do we do 45 seconds or 60 seconds in our classes? Because you can only do 8 to 14 repetitions at 2 up and 2 down. What's rule number 1? Technique is king. Rule number 2, do as many as you can. Rule number 3, if you can't do 8, it's too heavy. But if you can do 16, it's too light. Well, if you've only got 45 seconds and we ask you to challenge yourself in those 45 seconds, you will only do 14 repetitions maximum. So guess what? Every workout, we've deliberately contained it so you'll hit the bullseye. Starting to see the science behind it now. Yep. Wasn't just so it would all fit in 45 minutes. All right? Interval training is where we change from one muscle group to another. So every time you go to it, it's fresh. If I do legs here, and then I do back here, and then I do abs there, I'm always hitting a different part of my body. And by doing different extremities, we get what's called a peripheral heart action. Blood vessels have to open up in my legs to get more fuel to make those legs work well. Then suddenly I'm doing a push-up movement. Guess what happens? The blood vessels open up there to get more fuel. And my heart has to pump harder to now service a totally different neighborhood. And then I go and do my lower back, same deal. So by us deliberately chopping and changing what body parts you do or sending you back to there for a couple of minutes, this is using science to get your heart to pump harder and the muscles to get to that point of momentary muscular fatigue. That's how you get stronger and fitter. That's also very important that you maintain a heart rate between 70 and 90%. Above 90, that whole oxygen splitting thing won't work. Who's ever got the point where they get a little bit short of breath?
Oh, yeah.
ATP splitting we spoke about? That ATP splitting, that adenosine triphosphate splitting with the oxygen, can't keep up. So you literally have what's called an oxygen debt. You get the point. That's why going into the red zone in my zone is something we only encourage in small bursts. When we see someone hit red, we usually go, well, okay, yeah, you can dial that down a touch. Because in that 70 to 90% zone, you're getting the best outcomes. Below that, probably not pushing enough to stimulate your body. You're in your comfort zone. for that 70 to 90s. That's why we say green and gold. Green and gold in our my zone. If you're going to hit green and gold, you are getting the best outcome possible. And if you're not wearing a MyoZone belt, we don't know whether you are or not. So there's a sales plug for you right there. You might have it on your watch. We can't see it. You probably don't either. I've actually got in my members and said, hey, what's your heart rate? You got an Apple Watch? I can't see the bloody thing. So what, you might as well not have it. No point after the fact knowing. We don't want to look back in history to see whether we got it right. We want to be on the spot going too hard, too slow, or just right. Great. So let's summarize this. Our workout options at Paradise Fitness, we have the cardio focus, and they're your ambush, cardio and core trifecta, or private training. The strength focus is your double whammy, your Mauis and your Rios, your Express 30s, or private training. We encourage you to get a good mixture of both. But when you're in these, remember, if you can't do it 8 times, it's too light, too heavy. If you can do it 16 times, it's too light. If you're doing it faster than 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, you're probably getting inertia. You seen these rules start to come in play now? Yeah. So in those classes, I want to see more whinging and bitching about how that muscle just died. In a positive way. But not in these. Okay? If you're in an ambush, get the 60 seconds out by going lighter. Remember, you're not there for strength. You're there for your fitness. You'll get stronger, but this is where you'll get strongest. You'll get fitter, but this is where you get fittest. And if you look at the way the timetable's planned, there's a yin and a yang, and a yin and a yang, and a yin and a yang. Starting to see now, we don't sleep at night. We think about this shit all the time. Quick rules on food before we go. Okay, the best wine is the gift that you give me, all right? Pre-workout, you've heard me say this before, do not come here on an empty stomach. Talked before about metabolism. If you come here on an empty stomach, if you get up for a 5:15 class and you come to the club without eating anything, you've been in a fasting state since you went to bed the night before. There's 7, 8, 9 hours of the body to go into a stasis of hibernation. And you look like it when you come into a 5:15 class, like a bear that just came out of the cave. All right, not naming names. You know who you are. Yeah, and you're all... And you're always late. All right. But if you have a small mandarin, if you have a couple of slices of watermelon, if you have some fruit that is soft and quick to digest, it'll very quickly turn the metabolism on. You get a little bit of fuel out of it, but more importantly, it'll release the stored fuels. Yep. Veggies are another good one as well. I'm not a big fan of vegetables in the morning, but if I'm going to train in the afternoon like I often do, I'll make sure there's a high veggie content in my lunch. Maybe mashed potato or sweet potato or pumpkin, even better, something starchy that's got a bit of energy in it. Yep. I get my greens, I get my broccoli, I make sure I get my spinach and the like. That's right. And whole grains. Maybe it's a sandwich. Maybe it's a little brown bread sandwich with a little bit of cheese and a little bit of meat in there. Eat that an hour before my workout and I'm good to go. Don't train on an empty stomach. Learn to listen to your body. And if there are any particular foods that you get a bounce back from, like a drop in energy afterwards, log that. Note that. Yep. Some people will work for, others it won't. Okay. Post-workout, protein smoothies, something, a bit of chicken, tuna salad, get something in within 30, 40 minutes because your body is now looking for bricks to replace the wall you just broke down. All right? Think of working out as like renovating a house. You've just knocked out a wall, you're going to rebuild it, you need more materials. So your muscles are looking for materials to rebuild from. And finally, just an all-round balanced diet, the answer's in your hand. The size of the palm of your hand is the size of protein you need per serve. The thickness and the diameter of your palm is the size of the steak you should eat, or the amount of eggs you should eat, or the tuna you should have. That's the palm of your hand. That's not the 300 kilogram challenge at Tex-Mex, okay? Palm protein, 2 to 4 of them a day. If you clasp your hands halfway, what fits in that hand is how much carbs you should be having in fruits or vegetables. And how many times? It's on your hand. 5 or more. 5 or more of fruits and veggies that size. Pretty easy, isn't it? The answer's in the palm of your hand. Thanks, Kelly. And water often. Right, so let's summarize this and get you out of here. Train to failure on strength-focused days. Ask your muscles, can they do one more? Ask them, can they do one more? Ask them, can they do one more? If you get to 16, they're saying too easy, make it harder. If they can't get to 8, they're saying too hard, change it up. Yep. Train lighter and higher reps on your cardio days. So in your trifectas, in your ambushes, in your cardio and core, don't go for the burn, baby. Just get that pace up. Make that your lighter strength day, your high cardio day. What else? Alternate them. Alternate your heavy and light days. Train often. Train more days than you don't. The only reason we offer a Triple Club membership is because some people tell us they do other training as well. But if you bought a Triple Club membership and said, I'm only going to go to the gym 3 days a week, you're inactive 4 days a week. The majority of your life, you are becoming weaker, sluggish, all the things we're training for, the majority of your life, you're losing. Train more days than you don't. What else? Eat light, replenish often. And finally, have an accountability partner. We're starting to build a real community, a real network of friends here. Start to pair off and hold each other accountable. If one of you is losing motivation, getting a bit slack, getting a bit lazy, put on the shiniest boot you've got and wear it right up their butt, right? Give them a card of congratulations when they hit their 300 classes like, yes, he did. Make a big deal of it when they get in for that 5th workout that week. Encourage them to sign up for the challenge instead of sitting on the fence. If you don't know who your accountability partner should be, we'll find you one. But that's my final message there. You joined a club for the community. All the things I've shared with you today are the theory and the strategy behind what we offer. But the single most important thing we offer you is our genuine wish that you love your life. And that's why we're here.